G'day viewers, Piros here again, and I've got another pro tip for you. So today it's about shimming, so not so much the rear wing. So like everybody's put shims in their rear wings where you actually put the rear wing up or down and it gives you less lift or more lift. And then people talk about more speed, less speed. I don't really go into that line of thought. The most efficient way your rear wing can be is dead flat. That's the fastest it's going to go. By tipping it up or tipping it down, I know some brands say it gives you more speed, less speed. To me, both of them actually slow it down by keeping it flat. But I'm not here to talk about it today, but I will mention one thing though, is when you're talking about trimming your rear wing, you can see here that the code rear wing is on the bottom of the fuselage, and this axis one, it's on the top. So when you're trying to actually work this out, it's best you turn it over like this so you can actually see what it's doing. When the board's upside down, sometimes it gets confusing and you do the reverse. So why am I talking about mast shimming? Well, again, this is just from my experience, just going out and trying lots of different things. So some of you would have seen I went out to the Somerset Dam a couple of weeks back and went out with Josh Q and Maddie and the other four drive guys to meet up with the slingshot guys, and what it was a wakeboard event. So this is the first time my proto board was out there. I was only days old and I was riding that, but I shopped over with Josh Q. And the first thing I noticed when I got on Josh's board was it actually rode a lot flatter, and then when I was up it almost seemed like a little bit down, but it was actually rode incredibly flat. When I got back in my DC, it actually rode nose up. So the best part about this was Josh and I were both on code 980, so this was a super good comparison. And I just started thinking about it, and yeah, Josh goes, yeah, the two boards ride really different, and it does change the start and it does change how it rides. So we got sort of talking because, you know, both boards, the boxes are dead level. Okay, so this table, it's level. I'm putting it up here, back here, and that boom, that's smack on level. But you can see the board's kicking up. That's where my front foot is there. It is dead flat through here because of the trench, and the rocker starts in front of it. So something's going on here where it's actually changed, where the boxes to the actual deck is maybe a couple of degrees difference. So not that it's a real big deal, but I did notice once it got choppier, I found it a little bit easier to ride this, but when it was nice and smooth, Josh's was really easy to start. So the thing I did when I came back, the wheels just started turning in my head, and the more I looked around and I went back through some old vision, and then I saw some guys out at, I was out at Kira the other day, and I was looking at their boards, and like there's a lot of guys riding nose up and some are actually riding nose down, and it brings me back to my early subfoiling days where there was tail rocker in a lot of the boards, especially Fanatic. Now this is one of my old plates. I managed to dig it up. So it's 12 mil. That's how much tail rocker Fanatic used to put on their boards. So what that meant was when the foil was on the board, the foil was actually on an angle like that. It took us ages to cotton onto it. It made them hard to start, made it hard to paddle onto, made it hard to ride, and they're riding nose up. And you'll probably notice that with a lot of flight boards, the e-foil boards too. They're all designed to ride up. Not too sure why, but it's not exactly how you want it. So for the experiment, all I did was on this DC, and I've been packing washers under my mast for a long time. So all I got was a couple like 5-cent washers, and I put them under the back. So I'll just put them under the front here. You just pop them in like that, and what that does, it completely changes the angle of attack on your foil. So by angle of attack, come around the front here again. So you're not just adjusting the tail, you're actually altering the whole angle of attack of the foil. And you know, to the foil manufacturers, some will be having heart attacks over that. But if your board is, if it's parallel on the bottom and it's not parallel on the deck, you've inadvertently changed the angle of attack on your foil. And unless, say, you had like an Armstrong board with an Armstrong foil, where they're specifically made for each other, I think you wouldn't have any, you wouldn't even have to even look at worrying about this. But there again, you might do it too. And then if you're like a lift rider like this, where the tails are all set and you actually want to, you can't shim your tail, you can't do anything. And this is where it's been going on for a while. Zane, one of the lift riders, he's actually been putting, he's been shimming his mast for quite a while. So I think it's time we gave it a go. So, you know, what advantage are you going to get out? Now, I'm talking about, this is for foil driving. It's not for supping, it's not for winging, and it's not for proning. This is very different. The foil drive is a very different animal. Some people might say, you know, I do it like this in my sup, I do it like this in my wingding, and I do it like in my prone. Good for you. We're not talking about that. We're talking about foil driving. Because changing the angle of attack, so if you've got a negative angle of attack, like your foil's going down, and it's trying to kick your board up, that's going to affect your start. So the better it's more level, it's going to give you a more efficient start. And then when you're up and riding, because we ride around on the motor so much, going back out too, like riding nose up, nose down, you're not doing yourself a justice. You want the foil to run in its most effective position. So this is why I want you actually to do this. And when I did this on my DC, I put it in and it did change it. And it was because I only just ride slightly up, and when I did put it to more like a more neutral position, I found because it was a 410 and Josh's board was a 5.4, that when I was actually touching down, I was probably putting a lot more nose pressure on. So I actually just took these two washers out and I put it back to the way it was. Okay, so but I still want everyone to have a crack at it. Now they're like, you know, 5 cents each. Now, if it does work, I want you to then double them up, because these things are only like about a 16th, you know, a couple of mil. So double up, put them each side. Yeah, and don't freak out about putting washers everywhere. Everyone goes, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. I've been doing it for 9 years and I've never broken a mast plate, okay? So you put them in, these are just gal, just put some gal ones in. And if it works and you're happy with it, you can buy shim plates everywhere now and you can 3D print them. Of course, you know, I'm not talking about going 10, 12 mil, might only be 1 or 2 mil. But what that's going to do, it's going to give you, once you get it to a more neutral position, it's going to give you a more efficient start. And when you're riding along and cruising, it's going to give you a better way of actually just cruising around without being up or down. So when you come down, and then when you're on the wave also too, if it's, you know, you're not, it's like when you're actually coming to a stall, and if you're riding nose up, it's going to stall even more. So having a bit more flatter, it'll naturally bring your weight onto it, put a bit more weight on the foil to keep it going. So that's why we want to have a crack at that. So, you know, Slingshot, they got the same issue. You can't do it. The only way you can put a shim in this is to shim the mast. So, yeah, I'm not saying this is the solution. I'm saying it's something you should try. And like I said, I tried it and it did make a difference. Like just that one washer made a difference, but I actually preferred it just the way it was, okay? So, and again, so I'm just talking like everyone's bringing out all these new trench boards, all these old boards are coming out. And what happens when you start getting your board down like this, it's only 30 litres, and you know, people are still trying to keep the litres in them. And so what they're doing, you can see here, the litres have been, the board's a bit thicker here just to get some more litres put in it. And this has actually changed the angle of the deck, so that's probably what's going on. So my foot's maybe a little bit more elevated. I actually quite like it how it is. This is the first prototype. Obviously there's going to be different ones. You know, Amos, they're obviously, you know, they've got theirs designed how they are. And then you got the Synovas, there's so many boards out there now, but there's tons and tons and tons and tons of customs coming out. So a good test is get a level table like this, and then you actually want to get your foil. Oh. So just imagine if I had a wing on that. You know, you actually want to have the whole setup. So that's basically your board. You want to have that level. You want to have that level. You want to have your foil level. And then so you put your level on underneath and you put your level on up top. So it's just something you can try. I mean, you know, some of you guys can't be bothered to do it, but you know, this is just me just mucking around and noticing things, and I'm just sharing it as I go along. So like I say, a couple of 5-cent washers, put them in front, put them in the back, work it out. It's best to put it this way around so you can actually see, the board tilt up or the board tilt down when you do it. That's by packing the washer. So you just put 2 there or you put 2 there. Anyway folks, that's just try putting a shim in your mast and see how you go. So again, thanks for listening. Enjoy a follow drive. Always try something different. Talk to you soon. You.